Everyone, welcome to my channel. So it's pretty crazy that's already been another month, but I am very excited to share with all of you my favorite products from the month of March. So in today's video, I will be talking through all of the products and also putting them on my face. So this is basically a full face of my March favorite products. So I hope this video is helpful for any of you who are curious about my updated impressions of some of the products I tried this month, and also for any of you who have been eyeing these products as well. So before we dive into today's video, I did just want to make a brief announcement. So I actually have an Instagram handle at @eritayan.beauty, and I haven't been super active on Instagram and I haven't really announced the Instagram on this channel, but I figured I'd mention it today because I'm going to try to start posting more regularly. So if you're interested in more content, especially around some of the makeup looks that I do on days when I'm not filming videos, then please follow me over on Instagram. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. So my first favorite of the month has to be this Daydream Cushion from Cosmetics, and this is in the shade Sweet Secret. So Sweet Secret is their medium to tan skin tone shade, and this is a pretty sheer formula, so I think even if this isn't the precise match for you skin tone wise, it'll probably still work because this product does not have a ton of opacity. So I usually just use the puff that's included with this and just dab this in and just put this all over my face. And I've been really loving this product just on an everyday basis, especially if I'm filming any sort of video and I just want a little bit more coverage. Then this is really perfect just for helping to cover up some of my hyperpigmentation and just even out my skin tone a little bit. This is definitely not a product that's going to replace your concealer or really, help blur out your skin a lot, but this is nice for an everyday basis, and it does include SPF. So I like this, especially on days when I want some additional sun protection. So here we are with two light layers of the Daydream Cushion on, and you can see it just kind of blurs out my skin a tiny bit, gives it a little bit of coverage just to even out my skin tone. So I really like this for natural makeup days. Next up is actually a product that is not in my favorites. It's technically in the meh category, but I'm still on the fence about it, so I figured I would try it out in today's video just to collect a little bit more data on this product. So this is the Becca Brightening Color Corrector, and this is in the light medium shade. So you can see here it's a pretty light pinky shade. I feel like when I put this on my under eye area, it definitely brightens it a little bit, but then once I put concealer on top, I can't really tell if it still has that brightening property. So I don't know. Today I'm going to put it on one side of my face just so you guys can see the comparison. I realized in my first video reviewing this, I put it on both sides, so you guys probably couldn't really tell whether it made a difference. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of this on my right eye. And a little bit of this product definitely goes a long way. So there it is on this eye, and as I mentioned, I do think you can kind of see the brightening property right now, but I'm gonna go in now with my Glossier concealer in the shade G8 and see if there's still a difference after I cover it up with this. So here we are with concealer on both of my under eyes. Let me know if you guys can see much of a difference. This is the side with the Becca Under Eye Corrector, and this is the side without. I would say that if I look closely in the mirror, I do see a little bit of brightening under this, but it also does feel a little bit thicker on this side because I do have a lot more product. I have both the brightener and the concealer, so on the whole, I'm not really sure which side I like better, but please let me know down below if you guys see a difference, and if so, which side you think looks better. So my next favorite for this month has to be the Pat McGrath Subversive palette. I know, no surprise, right? Since I'm so obsessed with Pat McGrath Mothership palettes. But if you guys saw my video review of this palette, you know that I did a look using all of the shades in this palette. And since then, I've been playing around with other techniques, and I actually like using this palette more as a palette that I pair with some of my other Pat McGrath palettes. So that's what I'm gonna show you guys today. So for today's eyeshadow look, inspired in part by my dress, I'm gonna keep it kind of in the pink, purple, and blue blue family. So I'm going to start off not with the mattes in Subversive, but instead actually dip into my Divine Rose 1 palette and use some of these mauvey purpley shades instead. So to start off, I'm going to go in with my Wayne Goss number 16 brush into Valoria. And this is a really beautiful light shade just to start any look out with. So I'm just going to use this to blend out my crease area. And this is a shade that you can really pack on because it is just so light. Next, with that same brush, I'm going into Major Mahogany over here and just grabbing a little bit of it to add a little bit of depth to the outer corner. So we're looking kind of crazy right now, but don't worry, the shimmers are gonna help fix all of this. So now going into the beautiful Subversive palette, I'm gonna just use a finger with Blitz Amethyst over here, which is just such a gorgeous shade that captures the pink, purple, blue transition really, really well. So I'm basically just gonna pack this all over most of my mobile lid in the inner 2/3 area. So now using my GSN 9 brush, I'm gonna go into Night Creature just to bring in a little bit more of the purple shade. So I'm gonna pack that kind of in the inner thirds of the eye. And then using my Sonia G Classic Crease, I'm gonna go into Black Metal over here and just add some of this to the outer third, helping to blend the Blitz Amethyst shade into that outer third. So I did get some fallout with that Black Metal shade on this side of the eye, so I would recommend potentially doing your base afterward when you're using these shadows. So to finish off this eyelid, I want to bring in a little bit more pink, so I'm going to go in with a finger to VR Pink over here, which has this really beautiful pink to orange flip. And so I'm just gonna put this basically in the center of the lid, layering it on top of that Blitz Amethyst shade. And then I'm gonna just use my GSN 9 brush to refine any edges. And why not? Since we already have so much glitter on my eyes, why don't we also just go into Astral Ghost Orchid so you guys can see this in action as well. This really brings a lot of shine to the party. It's an interesting shade in that it's a lot more textured than Pat McGrath's other astral shades, and it doesn't really have a lot of pigment to it on the eyes, but it definitely shines quite a lot. Alrighty, so now for the lower lash line. I'm gonna first take my mini booster and go into Valoria over here, just so we can have a pretty smoky lower lash line. So basically I'm covering my entire eye bag area. Next, using my Esom S31, I'm gonna go into Major Mahogany just to pick some of that up for the outer corner. Now going into Subversive, I'm going to take that Blitz Amethyst shade and run this all over the inner 2/3 of the eye. And then in my inner third, I'm gonna take my Wayne Goss number 5 just to layer on some of this VR Pink. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit of concealer and put on some eyeliner and then be right back. So here we are with some eyeliner, and so to finish off this eye look, I'm gonna go in with my Wayne Goss number 5 back into VR Pink just to put a little bit of this into my inner corner. Alrighty, so with the eye look down, let's talk through this palette. So for me, even though this is a palette that you can basically use all the shades of together in one look like I did in my first Subversive video, I would definitely say that my preferred way of using this palette is to pick a more specific color story and then draw from this palette and pair it with my other Pat McGrath palettes. So in particular, there's at least 3 different types of color stories that I gravitate to with this palette. One is really focusing on this Gigabyte shade, so doing more of a green and gold inspired look. And for that kind of look, I'll often draw from these mattes, but also maybe go into a lighter matte like Ultimate Taupe from Subliminal 1, just to start things out with. Because I do find that this shade, which is called Deep Shade, is a little bit deep as a transition shade for me. So it's really helpful to go in with a lighter shade like Ultimate Taupe to start out with. And then I also really like going into this palette for more of a pink, purple fuchsia look. And so for that, I tend to go into VR Pink and also into Night Creature. And then finally, I like doing looks that have more of a blue, purple, and possibly pink, kind of like today's look, in which case I'll focus more on Black Metal and Blitz Amethyst, and then either bring in Night Creature, or VR Pink. And if I'm doing that sort of color story, I'll often go in with mattes from a different palette. So either my Divine Rose palette like today, or even my Celestial Divinity Mothership Mega palette, since that has more of those kind of pinky, purpley, mauvey sorts of transition shades. Overall, I think this is a really excellent palette to get some beautiful pops of color and texture for your look. So this is quite different from my other Pat McGrath palettes in that I find all of the shimmers are definitely more textured. And so the good thing about that is they're a bit more reflective and high impact on the lids. But the bad thing is that they're a little bit harder to apply with a brush, so you probably should use a finger. And you also might get a little bit more fallout like you saw with the Black Metal shade when I was trying to apply that with a brush. Also, I'm still a little bit on the fence with this Astral Ghost Orchid shade. It's a really different type of formula than Pat McGrath's typical Blitz Astral formula, which is a lot more smooth and creamy. So this has more kind of jagged crystalline edges. So on the one hand, I think this might be a little bit more reflective than some of her other ones, but it also is just chunkier and doesn't sit as flat on the lids. And so sometimes I get more fallout with this shade. But overall, I've been really loving this palette and the looks I've been getting. I think it really pushes me to be a little bit more creative and also play around with mixing and matching my palettes. I would not necessarily say this is the best Pat McGrath palette to start with, because for me personally, I really prefer using mattes in some of my other palettes in conjunction with this. But if you really like deep smoky looks, I think this palette by itself is also really excellent. So next up for the cheeks, I actually have two favorites for this month. So the first one is probably no surprise for those of you who watched my M Cosmetics video about this blush. So I already really loved the lip cushion in Venetian Rose, so I was really excited to pick up this blush. And I think this is just such a beautiful color. And for me, this is an excellent everyday blush shade because it just goes with a lot of the different eyeshadow looks that I like doing. I tend to gravitate towards pinky, mauvey, and sometimes purple looks. So I think this really pairs well with those sorts of looks. So the other product I actually haven't featured on my channel yet. I got this in an IPSY Glam Bag Plus, and I haven't decided yet whether to edit and upload that video. Let me know if you guys would be interested in another IPSY video. So this is the Ofra Bellini blush, and this is a really beautiful peachy blush in a velvet matte finish. So I find this is also really excellent for everyday basis, especially if I'm going for more of a natural look or something that's a little bit more spring-like and peachy. I feel like the matte finish of this blush is pretty natural on the skin, and because it's almost kind of a cream texture, it melts in over time. So when you first put it on, it might look a little bit cakey on the skin, but I find as the day wears along and your natural oils kind of mingle a little bit with it, it actually just looks really seamless on the skin. So for today's look, I would normally just go in with the Venetian Rose blush because I think this is a better color match for the color story on the eyes. But just in case I don't upload the IPSY video, I want to also show you guys this blush in action. So I'm going to do these each on one cheek just so you can see both of them. So first with my Rephr number 5 brush, I'm going to go into the Venetian Rose shade and put this all over my left cheek. So you can see this is a relatively pigmented blush, especially compared to other M Cosmetics blushes, but it blends in super seamlessly. And for me, I think this is just a really pretty pinky flush that's quite wearable and also has just a beautiful subtle sheen to it. When you look at it in pan or in swatches, it can look a little bit intimidating in that it definitely has some shimmery particles in there. But at least in my opinion, when you put it on the cheeks, it just looks really natural and the sheen is not overwhelming at all. But it is nice if you're someone who doesn't like to go in with some separate highlighter, because I think this by itself will still give you enough reflectivity on the cheekbone just for a subtle glow. Next, with my Artist Large brush from Wayne Goss, I'm going to go into the Ofra blush and put this all over my right cheek. And you can see this one is more kind of subtle and buildable compared to the M Cosmetics one. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a matte finish. But I find this shade just super gorgeous on an everyday basis, especially now that we're entering spring. So there we have both blushes on, and I will say, looking at myself in the mirror, I can't see a huge difference just because I think with my medium to tan skin tone, a lot of blushes tend to read somewhat similarly since both of these are sort of in the pinky category. But for this one, there's definitely a lot more sheen to it, and it's definitely more mauve leaning, whereas this one has much more of a peach, orange, kind of warm glow to it. So I didn't try any new bronzers this month, so we're just gonna skip bronzer and go straight to highlight. So I have been absolutely loving my Becca Cosmetics highlighters, especially the shade in Prismatic Amethyst. So that's this guy over here. And I was kind of on the fence about this shade because it looks really, really white in pan, and I wasn't sure if it would be flattering, but I actually find this is just such a gorgeous highlighter and really perfect for someone like me that likes doing kind of these purpley pinky looks. So I've actually been gravitating to this a lot. The other shade I have is Champagne Pop, which is definitely more of an everyday, more wearable shade. So I do like this as well, but I find that it's not as unique in my collection, so I haven't been grabbing for it as much. For today's look, in the spirit of showing you guys as many products as possible, I'm going to put Prismatic Amethyst on this side to kind of match with more of the pinky mauvey look that we have over here with Venetian Rose. And then I'm going to put Champagne Pop on this side to go more with the peachiness of the Bellini blush. So I'm going to take my Artist Small brush from Wayne Goss and shimmy it in the Prismatic Amethyst shade and just sweep this all over my cheekbone. And I hope you guys can see that shine because it's just such a gorgeous purple shine. Definitely not a natural highlight by any means, but just so gorgeous. And you can see how with this sort of eye look that is already very shimmery purple, this sort of highlight just goes really well with it. So I'm also just gonna put this on my brow bone just to connect everything together. So I've just been really loving this shade, and so much so that I bought 2 more Becca highlighters, both that are more kind of in the pinky category, just because again, I go for so many pink looks. So I'm hoping that those will also be really flattering. So I cleaned off my Artist Small brush. So now I'm gonna go into the Champagne Pop shade and just sweep this on the other side of my face. And you can see that this is a much more kind of natural champagne shade. So really gorgeous and really perfect for more of an everyday basis. You'll still get some nice shine and shimmer on your cheeks. So this isn't going to be a super natural highlight by any means, but definitely quite wearable, and you don't have to worry about this looking like an unnatural color. I'm also just going to take my mini booster in Prismatic Amethyst and take a little bit of this in my inner corners on both sides, since I find that because the shadows in Subversive are a little bit more textured and chunky, it's nice just using a more finely milled highlighter like this to kind of blur out the inner corner a little bit and add some additional light to that area. There we go. So I think that looks just a little bit more diffused. Alrighty, so the final favorite I'll be putting on my face today is Astral Flash Dance, which is one of the lip glosses from Pat McGrath. And I got this back in January, and I think this was in my meh category back then. But recently I've actually been wearing this a ton because I've been going in with Subversive and making these sorts of eye looks that have a lot of these pinks and blues and purples, and as you can tell, this is the perfect gloss for those sorts of looks. So now I've been really loving this. So I'm going to first just put on a little bit of my Pat McGrath lip pencil in the shade Structure and then put this on top. So here we are with a tad bit of Structure just to even out my lip color a little bit. So now going in with Astral Flash Dance. There we go. Isn't that so pretty? I feel like it's a perfect match with this kind of look. It's super shiny, it's super glittery, it has the blue, it has the pink. You can't really see those separate glitter particles unless you're really up close, which I think is a good thing. But I like how as I turn my head, you can just catch some of those glimpses of the blue, of the purple, of the pink. So I really love pairing this lip gloss with the Subversive palette. So here's my full face of my March favorites. What do you guys think? So now that we have the makeup out of the way, I also just wanted to mention a couple skincare items that I've been really enjoying this month. So first off, we have the Private Doctor Define Minus Serum, and I got this in my IPSY Glam Bag X, and this is a Korean beauty brand, and I just started using it over the past month or so, and I've been really enjoying this serum, especially in the evening time. As you guys can see here, it's a relatively gooey serum, and so I think this is probably best for the nighttime, though you can also use this during the day if you have especially dry skin. I do have relatively dry skin, but I like using this at night right before my moisturizer, and I find that it just provides a really nice hydrating barrier on my skin. This product has a very subtle scent to it, but that goes away pretty quickly after you apply it. Also, as you can see here, it really does sink in quite quickly, so I just rubbed it into my hand, and now you can't really see any of that gooiness anymore. I also find that this doesn't irritate my skin at all, despite all of the active ingredients, so I really love that, because for me in serums, it tends to be a little bit hit or miss just because I have quite sensitive skin. I can't say yet whether this really has significant effects in terms of anti-wrinkle properties or reducing sagging skin. Those are the primary claims, but for me personally, other than my under eye area, I don't really have a lot of issues with wrinkles. So I will say it does seem to be quite hydrating, and it does seem to help plumpen up the skin a little bit. I don't know if it really helps with wrinkles, but so far I've been enjoying it just as a nighttime serum. The other skincare product I've been really enjoying is from 111 Skin, and this is also something that I got in an IPSY bag a while back, and this is their Cryo ATP Booster Serum. And I think this is actually a really pricey serum, like over $100 or so. So when I first got this serum, I wasn't a huge fan of it because, as you can see, it is quite liquidy. It really is kind of like a very watery consistency. And so the instructions say to mix it in with your moisturizer. And so that's what I did at first. And I didn't really enjoy it using it that way because I found that it kind of diluted my moisturizer a little bit. Like I couldn't really put as much moisturizer on because this was so liquidy. And then my face would feel kind of dry later on during the day. Now I put this on first, let it dry down, and then put a moisturizer on top. And since I've been doing that, I've actually really been enjoying this as a daytime serum because since this is so liquidy, it just immediately soaks into the skin. It doesn't create any problems under makeup. So I feel like it works quite well if you want to incorporate some serum into your daytime routine and you're somewhat sensitive to how products layer on top of each other. This product does have more of a scent to it. It's a really fresh, slightly herbal scent. It's a little bit hard for me to describe, but I feel like they're trying to go for that slightly athletic smell, if that makes any sense. So it smells kind of invigorating. Similar to the other serum, I can't say yet whether I see major differences in terms of the active ingredients. I'll have to update you guys once these are skincare empties in terms of how I feel about the overall efficacy. But so far, neither of these irritate my skin. They perform really well as an intermediate skincare step, and I feel like they feel quite nice on the skin. So that's it for my March favorites. I would love to hear down below what products you all have been loving during the past month. April is going to be pretty crazy given all of the makeup that I've been buying through Beautylish, Sephora, and Pat McGrath just during all of these spring sales. So definitely subscribe to stay tuned with all of those new products coming in, and my April favorites are definitely going to be a doozy. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!